In the beginning, there were three who stood between humankind and the wild. The Kapre, who watches from the trees, smoke rising like a warning to the proud. The Dwende, small kings of the soil, who reward kindness and punish carelessness. And the Diwata, radiant spirits of the rivers and mountains, whose favor blesses life, and whose anger can take it away. Their names move like wind through memory, soft but unforgotten. They were never gods, yet never mere ghosts. They were the balance, spirits that watched, punished, or blessed according to how gently we stepped upon the soil that bore us. Wind moves through long grass like a thought forming in the dark. Water gathers itself along stones and continues its old journey, unbothered by the borders men argue over. Shadows adjust, not to frighten, but to make room. The body senses a companionable presence near the ground. Awareness sharpens without fear. We have always walked with witnesses. We have simply forgotten how gently to place each step. Far away, a rooster lifts its voice, measuring distance by breath, not by maps. Closer, the soil loosens around the roots of an ancient tree, making space for morning. Underfoot, the small lives of the world continue their hidden commerce, quiet as writing. What follows is not invention. It is recollection, an unearthing of the unseen kingdom we once addressed before we learned to speak of heaven. Before altars were carved, before bells learned the air, people learned the silence of bowing. They learned the usefulness of caution and the safety of courtesy. They learned that the land keeps accounts, not out of punishment, but balance. To move carefully is not fear, it is intelligence. To pause is not superstition, it is dialogue. This is where our story begins, with a listening older than speech. The horizon opens its pale seam, and the world's first color shows through. What we call myth is not outside time. It is time remembering itself. It greets whoever will meet it halfway. The walker, the farmer, the child half awake. The air holds its breath. No invocation is spoken. Only the understanding passes between soil and skin. Be careful, be kind, and be seen. Smoke curls through the branches of an ancient tree where no fire burns. It glows faintly in the dark, a pulse above the forest like a living heart. Villagers passing below whisper warnings to the wind, afraid to look upward. They say that smoke belongs to him, the one who watches, the one who waits. The Kapre breathes in silence, patient as the forest itself. No creature moves when he stirs. Birds quiet their songs, leaves hold still, and even the wind seems to hesitate. He does not step forward. He observes. His eyes are the embers that never die, burning through branches and memory alike. Those who wander here forget direction, as if the forest rearranges itself under his watch. The Kapre is not monster nor man, but reminder. He guards what was once sacred and punishes what has been forgotten. When arrogance enters his woods, paths twist upon themselves until all pride is undone. He takes nothing but certainty and returns the gift of humility. His forest, vast and indifferent, remembers who walks gently and who does not. Sometimes his ember moves. A traveler sees it and mistakes it for firelight, stepping closer for warmth. But what greets him is not flame, only smoke that bends like breath. A whisper follows. not threat, not speech, only the sound of attention. The forest inhales, and he vanishes, learning again how small he truly is. The Kapre's smoke lingers long after footsteps fade. It curls upward, a warning written in air. For those who listen, it says, "The land does not belong to you. You are a guest here, and your welcome is earned with care." He remains unseen, high in the trees, guardian of respect and keeper of balance. At dusk, the Kapre sits upon his throne of roots and shadow. His body is carved from bark and soot, his hair tangled with vines and stars. He does not move, yet the forest around him obeys. When he exhales, mist rises. When he gazes, rivers slow, remembering the weight of his attention. The Kapre's watch is not vengeance, but stewardship. He sees those who come to take, and those who come to ask. The first he confuses, the second he blesses. He is a keeper of proportion, ensuring that every cut tree, every taken fruit, is matched by gratitude. Even Welonsat is an offering, if given with care. Children once left offerings beneath the tallest trees, a leaf bowl of rice, a whisper of thanks. The Kapre would see, and the wind would stir gently, as if nodding approval. In this exchange, the forest stayed alive, and harmony was its law. No prayer needed translation. Reverence was understood. It was not fear that fed him, but balance. Those who mocked the custom learned quickly. Their paths grew endless, their fires refused to light, and their dreams filled with ash. To meet the Kapre's gaze is to see yourself diminished. A reminder that man is not the center, only a guest of greater design. In his silence, you are measured. In his forest, you are known. He is ancient not by years, but by memory. Each century adds another layer of smoke, another lesson written in fog. The Kapre endures because the forest endures. And when both are forgotten, it is not he who disappears, but us who lose the right to call this place home. There are places where paths do not obey direction. No map holds them. No compass understands them. Step once and you are near. Step again and you are lost. These are the Kapre's boundaries, invisible, deliberate, and just. He teaches by disorientation, by humbling the proud through confusion. Those who enter laughing often leave trembling. The forest folds upon itself, erasing every landmark, every memory of sunlight. Sound distorts, space thickens, and the air tastes of ash. Time stretches thin, then snaps. The wanderer kneels, whispering apology into the roots. Then, and only then, does the path return. The air clears, birds resume their song, and the ember in the trees fades to stillness. The traveler emerges changed, not punished, but educated. To survive the Kapre's maze is to relearn your place among living things. The forest allows your return only after you remember how to bow. Villagers speak of footprints circling their own, of shadows walking beside them unseen. They say he is not chasing, but guiding. The Kapre walks with those who walk humbly, and against those who tread too loudly. His smoke is the compass that leads home or swallows the road entirely. The difference is always tone, of heart, not of voice. Every forest hides its teacher, and every teacher hides his lesson. The Kapre's is simple, Do not enter what you cannot respect. Do not command what you do not understand. To forget this is to wander endlessly, chasing exits that were never lost. To remember is to walk safely, because you were never alone. There are stories of those who saw him and lived, not out of luck, but mercy. Children lost in the woods, cradled by unseen hands. Lovers who whispered promises beneath the wrong tree, only to find the forest whispering back. They say the Kapre listens to such words. He remembers them longer than the ones who spoke them. Some tales tell of a woman who met his gaze by moonlight and did not run. For her courage, the forest gave her fruit in barren seasons. Others say she vanished, taken into the smoke, not as victim, but as memory preserved. The truth is neither cruel nor kind. It is simply old. The Kapre feels affection for those who respect the quiet. He has no use for worship, only for sincerity. He watches children who bow before trees, not knowing why, smiling in the language of wind and branch. Sometimes he leaves them gifts, a coin, a strange flower, a dream of sunlight in deep night. The innocent are always favored. Curiosity, however, is dangerous when mixed with pride. Those who seek proof of him rarely return the same. Their minds wander long after their bodies do. They speak of vast eyes, of smoke that breathes, of laughter like thunder behind their backs. They never enter the forest again, though the forest never leaves them. There is tenderness in fear when it is pure. The Kapre understands this. He was made from it. He is the ancient exchange between awe and restraint. He asks for no devotion, only remembrance. To know he might be there is enough to make one walk kindly, and that, to him, is worship. Every story of the Kapre ends the same way, with someone forgetting their place. It begins with laughter, a dare, or a careless word spoken too loudly under the trees. Then the silence thickens, the air turns heavy, and the ember appears above. It does not move closer. It simply watches, and that is punishment enough. Disrespect invites reflection. Branches twist in the shape of guilt, roots tighten around pride. Those who mocked the unseen find themselves walking for hours in circles, returning always to the same tree. The Kapre does not strike. He lets the forest do the teaching. When dawn comes, those who survive leave offerings they once laughed at. A handful of rice, a word of apology, a bowed head. The ember dims. The wind soothes in approval. Balance, once broken, is quietly restored. But some do not leave. The forest keeps them, not as corpses, but as lessons. Their laughter becomes rustling leaves, their voices faint winds. The Kapre keeps their memory as warning and as mercy. In his silence, he teaches that arrogance feeds no one. The smoke still rises each night, faint and red against the stars. It is not threat, it is invitation to humility. For every flame mankind lights, there must be a shadow to keep it honest. And in the heart of the forest, that shadow burns softly, eternal. The Kapre's ember watches still, patient and alive. Beneath the forest floor, where roots weave like veins, there are cities of earth older than any empire. Each grain of soil hums with life too small to see, yet ancient enough to remember. When we walk, The ground listens. The Duwende stir. Tiny monarchs of the hidden realm, watching the weight of our steps, judging if they fall in kindness or in arrogance. They are the smallest of sovereigns and the most patient of witnesses. Their palaces are carved from clay and quartz, lit by fireflies like floating lanterns. No crowns gleam here, only roots shaped into thrones. Their laughter sounds like pebbles tumbling in a stream. Their anger like silence too deep to fill. To them, footsteps are intrusions or blessings, depending on how softly they land. The world above rarely notices. We call it dirt, field, or pathway, forgetting it is also kingdom. Every footprint marks our nature, heavy for the cruel, light for the humble. The Duwende record it all, not with pen or word, but with consequence. The careless find sickness, the kind discover coins in dust. Villagers once spoke of small footprints that appeared beside their own after harvest. At first they thought it children's play, but no human could walk that lightly. Then came the offerings, bowls of rice placed in hollows, flowers pressed into cracks. In return, fields flourished and illness left the home. It was never magic, only respect acknowledged. The Duwende do not ask for worship. They ask for awareness, that the ground beneath us lives, that gratitude is not wasted on what cannot speak. To them, every gift is a contract renewed. And when no one remembers to give, they remind the living with small lessons of misfortune. Beneath every step, judgment sleeps. In the deep clay, two courts reign. One wears the gentleness of light, the other the precision of shadow. The white Duwende bless and protect, weaving fortune through roots. The black Duwende balance the scales, carrying punishment to those who trample without thought. Together, they keep the world even, as sun and storm share the same sky. The white court sits in caverns lined with shells and luminous stones. Their halls shimmer like moonlit water. They guide the lost, heal the weak, and whisper luck into the soil of those who share without asking. When the world above sleeps, their laughter rises with the crickets, a sound of quiet approval. The black court rules from chambers dark as obsidian, where even roots hesitate to grow. They are not evil, only exact. Where harm has been done, they answer with inconvenience, with sickness, with loss that teaches. Their justice is as old as gravity and just as indifferent. What falls, falls fairly. Sometimes the two courts meet. It is said the earth trembles when they do, one side murmuring grace, the other silence. Their arguments shape seasons, their agreements shape fate. A generous harvest means peace between them. A failed one means balance restored through hunger. To understand the Duwende is to understand fairness without mercy. The world beneath us is not cruel, only honest. What we sow is seen. What we take is tallied. And when we call something luck, it is simply the earth returning our own reflection. Every act leaves an impression, written not on paper, but in soil. The Duwende are its scribes, invisible hands maintaining the oldest account. When kindness is given, roots grow stronger. When cruelty is done, they wither quietly, withdrawing light from beneath the offender's home. In this way, the ground remembers everything we pretend to forget. Legends speak of farmers who prospered because they always spoke before ploughing. Their fields grew heavy with fruit, though their tools were simple. When asked their secret, they only smiled and said they asked permission. Those who laughed at them found their own harvests hollow and dry. The earth rewards those who talk to it as if it were listening, because it is. Each house stands upon its history. Walls can be swept, altars rebuilt, but the land underneath holds truth. Where quarrels, cruelty, or greed once took place, no cleansing removes the stain until apology is given. The Dwende do not forgive through prayer. They forgive through correction. Sickness becomes penance, and renewal follows humility. Elders say that on certain nights, if you lie with your ear to the ground, you can hear faint scratching beneath the soil. It is not insects, it is writing. The Duwende etching new lines into the ledger, marking every act unseen by human law. Their script is endless, curling like roots in constant motion. And when storms come, washing over mountains and valleys alike, the ledger is not erased. It is sealed. The rain is the Duwende's ink, the thunder their punctuation. By morning the account continues, and so does the world. Every kindness preserved, every cruelty remembered. The earth is never blank. Children are the only ones who still see them clearly. They find tiny doors in the soil, whisper greetings to anthills, laugh at shadows that answer. Their innocence is a language the Duwende understand, free of pride, rich with wonder. Adults forget, but the young are still allowed entry to the invisible kingdom. They are not believers. They are participants. A child once played near a mound and left his sweets upon it, unthinking. The next day, a trail of silver coins appeared in his path, each smaller than a fingernail. His mother wept with gratitude, for she had prayed for fortune. The Duwende had listened, not to prayer, but to generosity untainted by intent. The innocent give without contract, and thus are always blessed. But curiosity can be a key or a curse. A boy who dug into a mound to see its inside found his legs struck numb by morning. The healer said the little ones were angered. Offerings were made. The boy recovered. From then on, no one touched the mounds except with bowed heads. Children speak of Duwende, who tell riddles, who hide toys only to return them later, who follow them home to watch over sleep. Their laughter in dreams is not haunting. It is presence. Where children are kind, the unseen world feels lighter. Where they are cruel, it learns restraint. In their games, the old faith survives. Each anthill becomes altar, each stone a witness. The earth delights in their innocence, because it is the only truth that never ages. Through them, the contract renews. Through them, memory breathes again. There is one rule that governs both the living and the unseen: respect. It begins with saunts, with a noticing before speaking, with stepping aside rather than through. The Duwende are not ghosts to be feared, but neighbors to be acknowledged. Every bow, every whisper, every offered grain is not ritual. It is conversation. Courtesy is survival. When people forgot to greet the unseen, misfortune became their tutor. A merchant mocked a mound and broke his ankle the next day. A woman poured waste where offerings once stood, and her garden died. The Dwende never shout their anger. They let consequence deliver the lesson. The ground itself becomes their voice. Respect requires no altar, only awareness. To pause before crossing a shaded path, to speak gently where one treads, to offer without audience. These are the manners of a world that still remembers how to live with itself. To forget them is to invite the silence that corrects. Yet for every arrogance, forgiveness waits. A bowed head repairs more than apology ever could. The Duwende respond to sincerity, not ritual. Their world bends toward those who listen, for listening is its language. In every act of care, their presence softens again. As dusk falls, the earth exhales, and the tiny kings withdraw into their soil palaces. The day's accounts are written, the balance restored. Above, the living rest unaware that judgment sleeps beneath them. The Duwende dream quietly of fairness fulfilled, and the world turns, still watched from below. She appears not in dreams but in reflections, a figure woven from mist and sunlight, her hair glimmering like the surface of a river at dawn. The villagers say the Diwata is the breath between sky and soil, the sigh of nature when balance trembles. Her beauty is never gentle. It is the kind that warns as much as it blesses. Those who see her claim the world stills around her. The wind stops, leaves hang motionless. Even birds hold their flight. It is as though the mountain itself listens. Her gaze does not invite worship. It demands restraint. One wrong thought, one arrogant word, and the blessing turns to silence. Her light is not the sun's, but older. It glows like embers beneath clear water, warmth that chooses where to shine. When pleased, her presence heals crops, cools rivers, and draws rain. When angered, the same radiance burns fields and twists the weather into storms. She is justice in its most elegant form. In old stories, a wanderer once followed the song of the Diwata through the forest. He found her by a waterfall, radiant and motionless. When he reached to touch her, the air shattered like glass, and he awoke alone. His hair turned white, his memory hollow. The song never returned. Beauty in the old world was never safe. It was a doorway, not an ornament. To witness the Diwata's face was to see the line between reverence and ruin. The wise turned away. The foolish lingered, and the forest remembered their names. The Diwata dwell where beauty endures untouched, in waterfalls that never dry, in trees that bloom out of season, in stones that hum under moonlight. Such places are not found. They reveal themselves only when they choose. To stumble upon one is both fortune and trial. The air changes first, thick with unseen attention. It feels like walking into prayer. In these sanctuaries, silence is sacred. Even whispers can wound the air. To break a branch, to carve one's name, to take what glows, these are not acts of curiosity, but invasion. The Diwata do not shout. Their anger arrives in gentler forms: fever, drought, madness, or dreams that refuse to end. There are still villages that forbid entry to certain groves. Children grow up knowing the trees there listen. Elders say the Diwata walk those paths in human shape, tall, radiant, and barefoot, their skin cool as river stones. They appear not to frighten, but to remind. Trespass is not just crossing ground, it is forgetting humility. A traveler once bathed in a forbidden pool beneath a sacred tree. When he returned home, no one recognized him. Even his own reflection had changed. They said the Diwata took half his face as payment. He lived quietly after that, never speaking of beauty again. In every mountain lies a border we cannot see. It is not marked by walls or symbols, but by presence. Those who feel it and bow live in peace. Those who step forward without listening disappear into stories that begin with warning. To honor the Diwata is not to worship, but to remember. Offerings are left by rivers, under old trees, beside mountain stones. A bowl of rice, a flower, or a strand of hair, tokens of sincerity placed without spectacle. When received, wind moves through the leaves in acknowledgement, and the earth exhales warmth. It is an unseen handshake between realms. The blessed are not chosen by power, but by grace. The humble farmer, whose field never withers, the mother whose child heals against all odds, the traveler guided home by fireflies, all are touched by quiet favor. The Diwata give not riches, but balance, protection in exchange for respect. It is the oldest economy in the world. There are songs sung only at dusk for them. The words are older than the tongue that sings. They do not ask for faith, only memory. When sung properly, the forest listens and faint lights gather near water, not spirits of the dead, but living echoes of gratitude. The Diwata, they say, are closest when no one demands them. A child once found a golden leaf floating against the current of a stream. His grandmother told him to bury it, not keep it. He obeyed, and by morning the tree behind their house blossomed despite the season. The Diwata do not reward greed. They reward understanding. Each gift left for them is also a promise to oneself. To care for the land is to speak their language. To live gently is to be heard. And in that hearing, fortune lingers, quiet but constant, like sunlight through old glass. Where blessings heal, wrath instructs. The Diwata's anger is not vengeance, it is correction. When people cut sacred trees, mountains answer with falling stones. When greed poisons rivers, fish vanish, and rain turns away. The punishment always fits the arrogance that summoned it. Stories tell of a lord who mocked the forest spirits and built his house from forbidden wood. On the night of his feast, roots rose from the earth and swallowed the hall. By morning, the land was smooth again, the trees unbroken, as if arrogance had been erased. The villagers left fruit by the edge for weeks in apology. The Diwata do not destroy out of cruelty. They simply return the world to balance. Pride is a wound to the earth, and they are its immune response. Even now, storms that seem too sudden or landslides that follow laughter are remembered as reminders, not accidents. Nature listens longer than men do. A man once cursed a river for drowning his crops. He spat into its current. That night, he dreamed of a woman rising from the flood, her hair made of water, her eyes endless. When he woke, the river was dry, and so was his field. Silence can be a curse, too. The old say, to offend a Diwata is to offend the pattern of life itself, and the pattern never forgets. Its punishment is not quick. It is eternal, unfolding as consequence. The wise repair through offering. The proud only learn through loss. In that loss, the world teaches respect again. The Diwata do not vanish when ignored. They simply retreat. They watch from the periphery of sight, waiting for remembrance. Every time a seed is planted with care, they stir. Every time a promise to the land is broken, they turn their gaze away. They are the keepers of continuity between what breathes and what endures. When people ask for miracles, the Diwata answer with conditions. Heal the river, mend the soil, respect the grove. Only then will fortune return. The agreement is never written, only lived. It is renewed each time someone bows before a stone and whispers gratitude. In some mountain villages, they say the Diwata still walk disguised as elders. They appear to test kindness, asking for water, for shade, for a moment's patience. Those who oblige find luck for 7 years. Those who refuse discover small misfortunes until they learn generosity. The lesson is gentle, but absolute. To serve the Diwata is to serve the earth. To bow to them is to acknowledge life beyond one's reflection. The living contract continues, invisible, binding and fair. Those who keep it walk in peace. Those who break it walk alone. And when the forest grows quiet at twilight, it is not emptiness. It is their listening. The unseen radiance, neither cruel nor kind, simply present. They are the pulse beneath beauty, the truth beneath all worship. The Diwata remain, watching the living honor or forget them. Before every journey there was a pause, not from doubt, but remembrance. People once believed the air itself had listeners. Every step into field or forest was a conversation with what could not be seen. The world was inhabited, not empty. To walk quietly was to acknowledge company. The old ones taught that silence was its own form of protection. No spell or charm could match awareness. When the wind shifted suddenly, it was not random. It was reply. The rustle in the grass, the change in scent, the way a bird turned mid-flight. These were greetings. To respond was simple. Respect, spoken without words. Even now, some still lower their voice before crossing a shadowed path. They may not know why, yet instinct remembers. Something ancient in the body recalls the etiquette of survival. The mind forgets names, but the bones do not. Every whisper to the unseen is a survival passed through generations. Children learn it first without explanation. Be polite, the elders say, even when no one's there. And the child, too young for theology, simply obeys. That is how faith begins, not in worship, but in habit. Belief becomes inherited reflex. The forest does not need grand rituals to listen, only patience, only stillness. And in that stillness, the unseen world breathes, not as superstition, but as memory returning to form. In every home stood a quiet corner for offerings, rice, salt, water, sometimes smoke from burning leaves. No one called it religion. It was maintenance, like tending a roof before the rain. The boundary between spiritual and practical never existed. Both were tools for survival. Protection was not begged for, it was earned through attention. Before planting season, farmers poured coconut wine into soil and whispered gratitude. Before journeys, Travelers tapped trees lightly 3 times. Before sleep, a drop of oil was placed on the floor for the night spirits to see their reflection and pass peacefully. These were gestures of coexistence, not fear. Every small act reaffirmed the treaty between worlds. No one spoke of the rituals as myth. They were mechanics of balance. Salt lined the windows not because demons prowled, but because history had proven caution-wise. Every candle lit against the wind was a reminder. Protection is remembering who watches you. Those who forgot found accidents waiting. Even sickness had its protocol. Healers would leave herbs by the doorway and whisper names into smoke. If the illness lifted by dawn, the unseen had accepted the apology. If not, the offering was repeated, doubled, never questioned. Faith was measured in consistency, not explanation. Every household carried its own liturgy of small safeties. No written prayer, no official saint, no need of witness. Just repetition until reverence became muscle memory. The result was peace, a fragile, earned calm. To live carefully was to live long. Elders were the translators between seen and unseen. Their words carried both memory and caution. They spoke softly, not to frighten, but to remind the young that arrogance invites attention. Stories were lessons disguised as entertainment, safety coded in wonder. Children listened, laughed, and learned how not to vanish. Around fires, they told of travelers who mocked the forest and were never found again. They spoke of rivers that rose without rain and winds that refused to cross certain trees. The tales were moral geometry, how to walk straight in a world that curved. They were warnings, not for obedience, but for survival. A grandmother's whisper carried more power than any written text. When she said, "Don't look back after sunset," she wasn't guarding from ghosts, but from pride. To look back is to challenge the world, to prove it's real. The wise never test what already shows mercy. They simply thank and move forward. The stories changed with time, but the pulse beneath them remained. Every myth was instruction, every parable a map. Faith was a system of navigation, not worship. It told people where not to step. When elders died, their absence was felt not as grief, but as silence in the air. Their lessons lingered, invisible fences of respect. The world without them grew louder, riskier. Without the old words, arrogance filled the gaps, and the unseen began to remind once more. Then came the friars, carrying foreign light into a land that already glowed. Their faith named the unseen as darkness, the spirits as demons, and the old silence as ignorance. They built churches atop sacred groves, recited Latin where whispers once sufficed, and the people bowed, outwardly, though the soil beneath still remembered other prayers. Conversion was never total. It was camouflage. Inquisition followed, not in fires, but in redefinitions. The Kapre became a devil, the Dwende a trickster imp, the Diwata a fallen goddess. Their names were recorded as heresy, but their presence refused translation. Even the friars sensed it, the unease in their sleep, the dreams that lingered after sermons. Dominion over belief was never complete. By day, villagers crossed themselves at altars. By night, they left fruit beneath trees. It was not contradiction, but diplomacy. One faith for the eyes of power, another for the eyes of the forest. Between them, the old world survived under new symbols. The rosary became both prayer and ward. Holy water shared its duty with river offerings. The saints acquired the faces of old gods, their stories rewritten yet familiar. Adaptation, not extinction, kept the spirits breathing. The Diwata wore new names and watched from the rafters of cathedrals. The priests preached dominion. The land practiced patience. Every bell that rang over the fields was met with rustling leaves in quiet defiance. Faith, after all, was never destroyed, only disguised. And beneath every church foundation, the old roots still coiled, listening. Centuries later, the air still feels watched. The prayers have changed languages, but not tone. People no longer name the unseen, yet they hesitate before breaking old ground. Superstition, they call it. Memory, the earth replies. Modern faith lives with contradictions. Science explains the wind, but the wind still answers in timing too precise to dismiss. People laugh at omens, yet carry charms just in case. The divide between belief and instinct remains porous. Even progress bows unconsciously. In the city's glow, faith hides in gestures. A driver taps his dashboard before starting the engine. A student whispers thanks after surviving an exam. An old woman feeds birds each morning, eyes half closed. No one calls these prayers, but the unseen still listens. Every ritual that once named spirits now names luck. Every whispered warning has become tradition. But the rhythm is unchanged, an old language wearing new clothes. The same gratitude, the same caution, the same invisible handshake between man and earth. We are still in conversation, even if we forget the words. And so the land endures, not conquered, only reinterpreted. Faith evolves, but the shadows remain faithful. Beneath every church, every home, every field, something ancient breathes, patient and undying. The old faith is not gone. It has simply learned to whisper in both directions. They came with bells and banners, calling the land a new Eden waiting for order. The friars saw forests as wilderness to tame, mountains as obstacles, rivers as routes to conversion. They named the unseen as evil, and the air filled with hymns meant to drive it out. But beneath the echoes of prayer, the trees continued to breathe, and the old gods listened in silence. Each swing of a censer left the scent of conquest in the wind. They built churches from the bones of the jungle, carving crosses where sacred trees once stood. Icons replaced idols, sermons replaced stories. But even the friars at night whispered uncertain prayers against the noises of the forest. They sensed another faith watching them, patient and wordless. The first baptisms were not triumphs, but negotiations. The villagers knelt in rivers already blessed by Diwata. When the holy water touched them, it mixed with what was older. No soul was replaced, only renamed. The priests recorded conversions, the spirits recorded witnesses. In sermons, they spoke of paradise. But the people already lived in one, full of guardians, not sinners. The friars mistook respect for superstition, mistook balance for heresy. And in that mistake, two faiths began to coexist. One loud, one listening. Neither ever fully surrendered. By night, the forest glowed faintly under moonlight. Smoke rose from both incense and offerings. The villagers prayed twice, once for heaven, once for harmony. Between those prayers, truth survived. Faith became layered, like the soil beneath their feet. The friars wrote in thick Latin script, Kapre, demon of smoke, Duwende, deceitful imp, Diwata, pagan queen of vanity. Ink on paper became law, and imagination became sin. But names do not alter essence. They only confuse those who forget to listen. The sermons painted the forest as a trap of the devil. They told stories of false miracles, of shadows in the trees pretending to be angels. Villagers learned to nod in agreement, even as they bowed to the roots at dusk. Faith wore two faces, one public, one ancestral. Survival required both. The more they condemned the unseen, the stronger it lingered. Miracles continued, crops thriving, rivers healing, storms shifting their path. The friars called it coincidence. The villagers called it proof. Belief simply changed clothing. In confessions, farmers admitted leaving fruit beneath trees. Mothers confessed to whispering into soil before planting. The priests listened, absolved, and looked away, for even they had seen too much to dismiss completely. The border between sin and reverence blurred daily. The land never obeyed dogma. Its rivers still sang the old prayers beneath church bells. Every exorcism left behind the scent of smoke, not from hell, but from the mountain's patient laughter. The spirits were never banished. They merely learned new names to hide behind. By day, the faithful filled the pews. By night, the same hands poured rice and oil beneath the trees. Hidden rituals continued in whispers, not defiance but continuity. They did not abandon one faith for another. They merged them like rivers meeting in shadow. In one village, an altar boy buried offerings behind the church. He said it was for the eyes beneath. When his priest discovered it, he only nodded and told him to be discreet. Even in holy robes, some remembered. No garment silences ancestry. Women carried rosaries in daylight and amulets at night. Their prayers mixed Latin with forgotten dialects. Each bead, each charm, each gesture, a coded treaty between two worlds. The spirits did not demand secrecy, only respect. The hidden faith thrived in humility. There were nights when songs of worship from the church met chants from the forest. The sounds blended perfectly, distinguishable. To heaven, it was praise. To the mountains, remembrance. Both were satisfied. Religion became theater. Belief remained truth. The people acted for survival, not deceit. Faith had learned disguise, a virtue in a world that punished honesty. And in that quiet masquerade, the old and new shared the same heart. The old gods returned, wearing halos. Each saint carved in wood bore the eyes of something older. San Isidro's smile resembled the harvest spirit. Santa Lucia's gaze reflected the Diwata of the rivers. The people prayed to both without distinction. Processions glowed with candlelight. Children carried statues through rain, while elders whispered different names beneath their breath. To outsiders, it was devotion. To insiders, it was diplomacy, a living peace treaty between heaven and the hills. Faith had adapted, as it always does. In paintings, angels bore brown skin and forest crowns. Christ's blood mixed with the color of soil. Every church mural became a quiet rebellion in pigment and texture. The land refused to be painted pale. Its divinity remained rooted in clay and humidity. Even the bells, forged from Spain, sounded different here. Their tone carried the forest's resonance, echoing through mountains as if announcing both Mass and offering hour. The spirits listened to the hymns and did not object. Music is older than borders. Harmony needs no permission. The friars eventually stopped questioning the miracles. Statues wept, harvests healed, and the faithful multiplied. They called it grace. The land called it balance. No one corrected the misunderstanding. It was working for everyone. By sunrise, people bowed to the altar. By sunset, they bowed to the soil. 2 prayers, 1 heart. Their faith split in daylight, then mended in darkness. They lived safely between worlds. This dual life became heritage, not hypocrisy. The young learned both prayers, one whispered, one spoken. They crossed themselves before meals and left crumbs on the ground for unseen guests. The balance endured through gestures small enough to escape judgment. That was the secret of survival. The friars thought they had converted the islands, but beneath every confession lingered the old rhythm, a heartbeat shaped like the mountains. Even after centuries, every household held echoes of that rhythm. Every superstition was an heirloom. Every whispered apology, a continuation of faith. Today, people still call it tradition. They do not realize they keep 2 altars alive, one visible, one buried. The songs may have changed, but the silences have not. Where reverence once spoke, it now hums beneath modern noise. The sacred remains, disguised as custom. In the end, both heaven and the earth were fed. Every candle shared its light with both realms. And the spirits smiled, not defeated, merely renamed. Faith survived by adaptation, not obedience. And the islands learned to pray in 2 directions at once. Even now, the old forests breathe. They shrink each year, yet the air inside them feels unchanged. Men cut down trees, and something watches from the remaining ones. Loggers speak of shadows that follow their axes, of smoke without fire, of voices that whisper their names before the first strike. Progress moves forward, but not without witness. In remote provinces, stories still rise with the mist. Fishermen refuse to cast nets near glowing mangroves. Farmers leave small piles of rice at the corners of new fields. They do not speak of spirits anymore. They call it courtesy. The vocabulary changes, the reverence remains. No one truly forgets how to ask permission. At night, guards stationed near construction sites tell of footsteps above empty scaffolds. Workers laugh, then pray under their breath. They say the forest doesn't vanish. It migrates. Its inhabitants follow where the earth is wounded, tending it like healers. Even the machines, when they stall, sound almost respectful. In the lowland towns, tree stumps are crowned with flowers instead of cleared. Someone always remembers to bow, even if no one explains why. Superstition, they call it. But the silence that follows feels holy. The air bends differently around gratitude. The cities expand, but so do their shadows. And within those shadows, the ancient watchers adjust their shape. Steel becomes their new forest. They move between alleys, cell towers, and hums of electric light. The realm of the unseen has merely changed its camouflage. In small villages, grandmothers still tell stories after dusk. They no longer call them warnings, only memories. The young listen half in disbelief, half in fascination. The names of spirits have softened, but their presence has not. They live in pauses, in gestures, in what people don't laugh at too loudly. A boy tells of a giant who smokes near the edge of the sugar-cane fields. A mother hushes him and changes the subject. But that night, she leaves a cigarette on the windowsill. Old habits survive like seeds in the soil. They grow even when no one tends them. In every community, there is one house where people say strange things happen. Lights flicker, footsteps echo, food disappears from plates. The owners never move away. They simply learn to share space. The living and the unseen coexist through quiet compromise. Even modern storytellers inherit the task. Radio hosts, podcasters, and film writers will retell these old fears in new frequencies. The names Kapre, Duwende, and Diwata appear again, reframed, reimagined, reborn. The storytellers do not summon them. They simply continue the conversation. And when the power cuts out during a storm, everyone still pauses. Old instincts rise like smoke through memory. People light candles, not for faith, but for company. The line between fear and respect still flickers in the flame. The internet has become the new forest. Its paths twist endlessly. Its glow never fades. And within it, myths breathe again. People share sightings on forums, post strange photos, write about dreams that felt too real. In pixels and comments, the unseen has found another language. A viral story speaks of a driver who saw glowing eyes in the mirror. Another of a child who spoke to an invisible friend near an earthen mound. The replies fill with laughter, emojis, then silence. Someone always says, "Better apologize just in case." That, too, is a prayer. Across timelines, the Diwata reappears as light in phone cameras. The Dwende becomes a viral short story about luck and debt. The Kapre appears in memes, smoking still, but now under neon signs. Mockery or memory, it no longer matters. They remain named, and naming keeps them alive. Each shared story is a campfire burning in digital night. People gather, skeptical but curious. They read, type, remember. In every retelling, an echo of old rituals persists. Storytelling as protection, laughter as offering. The medium changes, the purpose endures. The spirits never needed belief to exist, only attention. And the modern age gives them both, wrapped in light and signal. Even scrolling is a form of invocation. To look, to linger, to imagine. All these are invitations, and someone always accepts. Television, cinema, and comics have become new temples. The spirits appear larger than ever, drawn in light, voiced in surround sound. The myths of the Kapre, Duwende, and Diwata return in costume, in animation, in glass. Audiences watch, half entertained, half humbled. They recognize something too old to dismiss. In shows and films, the forest becomes alive again. The unseen reclaims image and narrative, no longer confined to whispers. Children grow up naming what their ancestors feared. Fiction becomes remembrance, and remembrance in the end is resurrection. Yet, even within spectacle, something sacred stirs. When screens go dark, silence fills the room. For a moment, the glow remains in their eyes. Art imitates faith until the imitation becomes sincere. Belief sneaks back, disguised as curiosity. In comic books, the Dwende smiles mischievously. In streaming series, the Diwata commands wind and thunder. The Kapre sits still, a watcher among skyscrapers. They have become part of the modern pantheon, global, adaptable, enduring. Each story adds to their mythology anew, and when the credits roll, the feeling lingers. That old sensation of being watched, but not threatened, of being remembered by something older than history. Even modern light cannot erase the glow of myth. It only changes where it shines. Skeptics call it nostalgia. Believers call it truth. But in the space between both, something alive continues. The myths neither demand proof nor offer denial. They simply remain, persistent, patient, breathing beneath reason. Modern life still carries rituals no one admits. A quiet apology before entering old houses. A bow before trees older than the road. A murmured just in case before night travel. Every act is both ancient and current. Cities now hum louder than prayers. But under the noise, the rhythm of reverence survives. It hides in instinct, in superstition, in pause. To doubt is human. To remember is ancestral. And remembrance is the last form of devotion. Atheists still look over their shoulders in certain places. Scientists still pause when coincidence feels personal. Even unbelievers inherit caution. The unseen no longer needs worship, only acknowledgement. That too is a form of faith. The spirits are not gone. They have simply adjusted to their distance. In every flicker of light, every rumor shared, every silence after laughter, they breathe. The modern age does not erase the old world. It only expands its territory. Every shadow feels deliberate here. Leaves tremble even when the air is still. The forest remembers the first footsteps that asked permission to pass. It has seen men pray, forget, return, and apologize. Its silence is not emptiness. It is judgment withheld. Eyes do not always look like ours. Some glow, some shimmer, some see through time itself. To walk beneath their gaze is to enter a covenant older than faith. You are observed not for sin, but for intent. Every motion tells them who you are. Birds fall quiet when arrogance enters. But humility makes even predators pause. The forest is a listener before it is a host. Those who speak kindly to it never vanish. Those who mock it are remembered differently. In every glade, the air thickens with memory. Echoes of unseen watchers drift through branches like breath. To stand still long enough is to feel their presence press softly against your spine. They are not gone, only quieter than we've become. And they never blink. There are those who claim to have seen faces in bark. Others hear their names whispered by rain. Maybe imagination, maybe inheritance. Either way, the forest sees through disbelief. It always has. The soil beneath us is not mute. It holds everything. Footsteps, blood, roots, secrets. Every act we bury becomes seed for consequence. What grows depends on how it was planted. The ground keeps perfect record. Farmers once said the soil remembers kindness. If you treat it gently, it softens beneath your feet. But if you wound it, it hardens like bone. Even mountains have temperaments. Every stone knows its history. Graves are not ends, only ledgers. Each one marks a promise made between living and land. The ground lends us bodies. We return them in gratitude or neglect. How we return them determines what follows. That is the oldest law. The Dwende guard these archives, tiny scribes in the dark. They are neither moral nor cruel. They only balance accounts. A bow is a signature, an offering, an amendment. Justice, written in soil. Even cities are built atop such memory. Concrete only masks the pulse. The ground below still hums with unfinished stories. And sometimes when night rain hits the pavement, the past answers back. Softly. Every river has a voice. You just have to stop talking. Its sound is older than words. Its rhythm older than prayer. Villagers once listened for omens in its flow, believing water carried messages from the unseen. Now it carries reflections of streetlights. But it speaks still. Once the Diwata ruled here, radiant, merciful, furious. When the water shimmered gold, blessings followed. When it turned black, people fled. The river was scripture, read through ripples and scent. Its verses are now silt. Yet something in its depths endures. Fishermen still whisper thanks before casting nets. Children toss coins without reason. The act itself is ancient memory, disguised as superstition. Ritual persists through forgetfulness. Rivers forgive, but they never forget. They cradle cities that no longer honor them. And when storms come, the flood feels personal, as though the river is returning unspoken debt. Balance always collects. The Diwata's reflection sometimes appears when the moon is full, not as vision, but as shimmer, like light remembering its source. Even polluted waters have faith in renewal, and the silence between waves is her voice, waiting to be heard again. Long ago, people didn't separate fear and faith. They were the same heartbeat. To fear was to recognize power, and to respect that power was to survive. Only later did fear become something shameful. The ancestors would not understand our word for superstition. Fear taught boundaries. It told us when to look down, when to listen, when to stop cutting trees. It made us cautious, which meant alive. Every act of fear was a prayer for safety. Every tremble, a sign of reverence. Modern life teaches defiance as courage. But the old courage was obedience, not to men, but to mystery. To bow was not submission, it was alliance. The brave knew when to kneel. The wise never tested kindness twice. Even now, when thunder rolls, hearts slow down. When the wind stops suddenly, conversation dies. These are remnants of that older faith, Buried beneath disbelief, the body still remembers what the mind has forgotten. Instinct is the last priest. Fear, in the right shape, is devotion. It reminds us we are not the center. It keeps the soil soft, the rivers clear, the forest awake. Those who laugh at fear invite correction. Those who honor it live long enough to teach it. The world has never been empty. We just grew louder than what once answered back. Every silence is filled with patience, not absence. The spirits wait, not for belief, but for balance. Respect is their only demand. To honor the unseen is to remember how fragile life is. It means knowing the cost of each step, each cut, each word. It means leaving a little offering, not for magic, but for gratitude. The gesture itself sustains the contract. It says, I know you're still here. We inherit the covenant by instinct, when we whisper before entering old places, when we stop to feel the air change, when we say thank you to nothing in particular. These are not habits. They are signatures. Every generation re-signs the pact, some in prayer, some in fear, some in silence, but all in recognition. The land listens whether or not you believe. It always has. And when the last light fades from the cities, the forest will still glow. The spirits will step forward again, unchanged, forgiving, eternal. They will remind the survivors that reverence was never about belief. It was about coexistence. And that was the true meaning of faith. Even now, in the age of glass towers and sleepless light, the old words endure. Before stepping through grass or crossing untended ground, someone still murmurs them softly. No one teaches it formally. It simply lingers, passed down in reflex. The body pauses, the air stills, and the invisible world listens. Respect remains humanity's oldest survival instinct. Across the islands, the phrase drifts from generation to generation. Tabi-Tabi po. That means excuse me, step aside, let me pass. It is neither command nor superstition, but courtesy made sacred. It reminds both the living and the unseen that the world is shared. To speak, it is to remember the covenant that built peace from fear. The spirits have learned our silence, and we have learned their patience. They no longer ask for grand rituals, only acknowledgement. A whisper before walking, a glance before cutting a tree, a hand paused before pouring water on earth. These are offerings now. Attention has replaced incense, reverence disguised as instinct. Even in the cities, beneath the hum of machines, something still listens. The unseen no longer lives only in forests or rivers. It travels with us, through concrete, through noise, through forgetfulness. Each time someone says, Tabi-Tabi po, the line between worlds softens. A truce renewed, ancient and alive. And so the country endures, half modern, half mythic. The people bow to traffic lights and unseen spirits alike. For in every apology to the invisible, an old rhythm continues. Faith has changed its name, but not its nature. The spirits smile, still beside us, still listening, still here.